Hello and Allahu Akbar, the Baha'i greeting. God is most glorious. To all the Baha'is, all the non-Baha'is, all the people of the earth. My name is Abbas Temuri. I am the elder of Baha'u'llah in the planet, the special envoy, as it is foreseen by Showi Effendi. This is the final session videos on the 7 valleys. I did read the text for you last night, and I'm going to throw some of my opinion on the whole subject. By the way, time is 11:17. For the record, today is 23rd of October. Well, these issues of 7 valleys, and 4 valleys, and procedures as such that Baha'u'llah had to be responding to the people is one of this most unique characteristic of Baha'u'llah's revelation. It is this element of democracy. It seems almost all the writing of Baha'u'llah has been answers to the questions. The Book of Certitude, even the Kitab Aqdas, always believers would have been asking him for a long time as what the laws and ordinances are. Including the 7 valleys is an answer, it's a response that Baha'u'llah is giving to Muslims, Sufis. Is not necessarily the Baha'i approach, and I'm going to discuss it. Did discuss it last night, but I'm going to bring it up again. That Baha'u'llah says his way is different from the 7 valleys. So let us get into the subject. In the grandest scheme of this universe, there are 3 ingredients, there are 3 elemental forces that governs the whole universe, what we know and what we do not know and what we are going to go even after this life, this plane of existence. The first thing that it can be observed in this universe that we are in right now is time. It seems there is movement in the entire universe, and the movement carried by the measurements of time. Therefore, time and motion is one of the prime directives that the entire universe goes with it. That which changes into willpower after we pass this material plane. The second factor is the intelligence. There is a definite observation by everyone in the world that there are intelligence in this universe. Things are not come, whether even they've come randomly, however they come, there is intelligence requires to create, to make things. And the third one, of course, is the willpower. Is willing to do. So these are the 3 things that it requires to create. You want to create, you have to have time, you have to have intelligence, you have to have willpower. When it comes to time, we're outbeat by God. What we call as God, or what our understanding of a higher creator is that he's not confined by our time. We cannot possibly say when he started or when he ended, and it is in this eternity, time is a part of it. When we say eternity, usually there is no beginning and no end, therefore there is no time. But in Baha'i faith, I've explained it before, just as the matter is made, is composed of elemental, particles. We call them atom, now we call them quark. And energy is a minimum amount, we call them, quanta. The time is made out of B and E in the Baha'i faith, beginning and end. Things start from a point and ends to another point and recycle itself to a new beginning and a new end, and this is perpetually going on. So eternity breaks down, or infinity breaks down into B and E, beginning and end. Baha'u'llah says there's a beginning that has no beginning and an end that has no end. In this three factors, God is not in time, our time. Now, there's a very important point that most of you agree with me. An intelligent being, whoever it is, with willpower, such person, such being, such whoever will suffer, could suffer from loneliness. An intelligent man, if he has no associate, all by himself, he feels lonely. And that's the underlying factor. That universe is the way we see it. Somebody is lonely. And that is God. A very beautiful answer is given by Prophet Muhammad, very unique, which in Baha'i faith have been interpreted many times, by Abdul Baha and other times, by Bob himself. And Muhammad says, God told me that. He was a hidden treasure. He wanted to be known. Therefore he created everything so they can recognize him. It's in all of this is the story of a lonely one that is looking for a peer, the peer that does not he have. So what would a lonely person do? What would a lonely being do? Everything he creates, this is a prime directive of universe. Everything that is being created by a creator is a degree lower than the creator. Man cannot make anything as good as himself. Impossible. Anything man makes is lower than his own structure. This goes with God too. Whatever God creates is not him. It's a degree lower. It's like Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse. Whatever Mickey does, Mickey cannot understand God. Cannot understand Walt Disney. Mickey cannot. Mickey's a paper. And this is boring for God. It would be boring for me. Try to imagine. I brought this before to you. You would be given, everybody dies, make a movie out of it. The whole people, all the 6 billion people on the planet, they die somehow as the science fiction movie goes. Their energy goes down on the bottom of the earth where someone accidentally was there that night. And all the life energy goes in this guy. And this guy now was supposed to live 70 years, but all the life gone into his system. Now he's 5 billion times 7, it's 35 billion years. So what will happen to him after 1,000,000 years, after 1,000,000,000 years? It is impossible to fathom what would happen to any of us if we were to be living 1 billion years. power could we have? And if we would have been living 1 trillion years, unimaginable. Never mind God. Never mind imagining a superpower. Think about yourself and myself. Think about ourselves. Where are we heading? If we are intelligent and we have willpower, and the road is eternity, then you don't need to imagine anything about God. You are God. Because you can't even imagine who would you be yourself. Think of God as yourself then. You suffer from loneliness, so as he does. It's lonely. What would he do? Everything he creates, everything he makes is a degree lower than himself. He's tired of the cows and the vegetables and all of these things. He knows what they do and what happens. He wants somebody that does things unprecedented way that he can't, that God himself cannot imagine what it is. In that case, he has to share the ingredient of his willpower and his intelligence with that being. We're all familiar with cloning. Let's say God cloned us, the intelligent being in this universe. We are cloned at one point of time, there are other being cloned at a different time, but we're all have willpower and they're all intelligent. Therefore, we can exert willpower and create just like he does. And God would not know what we do, and that gives him the pleasure. Because now there's somebody small, minute, but God willingly has done that. So the man can do things that he cannot know what it is, because he's given him willpower. You see? But there's a problem. A huge problem. When they bear a child, a mother at age 25, 35, even 40, and has a baby, 1 month old, the difference is about 40 years between them. Imagine if the mother would have lived 1 million years and then has a baby. Now the difference is a lot more. This baby has to go maybe 500,000 years before he even understands what are the power of his mother. What if the mother is 1 trillion years old? What if he is infinitely old? There's a problem then. The child will never know, cannot know, his father, his mother. There's so much difference between them in time. Let's say after 1 billion years, we, you and I, we will not have in the course of evolution no longer a body. We become some kind of a material energy. Intelligent, but a material energy, different type of being. And now we're bearing a child, but our child is in his material stage. He doesn't know us. And we're lonely. We're dealing with this child. This child is humanity. So, what would you do? You know this boy has willpower and you know he's intelligent. Therefore, he could make mistakes. He could destroy himself. He could do a lot of things himself. And he's kind. He could destroy this universe. So, what would you do? You're bound to give him a pathway. A pathway. That would be called a religion. and you personally deliver it to him. He doesn't know you, so you would have to assume the body of a man, or use the body of a man, which God does not do all of that anyways. That's not the way he practices. He actually communicates with a man. He uses a man, like his television, like his envoy, and he speaks to people. In this relationship, the selfhood of that man, which is prophet of God, which is the manifestation of God, is not annihilated, it's not gone, but there's something else. That child is born with it, right from the very first day. It is like the flower. The universe gives on its time when it's necessary, the flower comes out. What is necessary is, you know, in nature, things evolves to protect humanity. When things goes down by humanity, certain individual, just like a flower, they get evolved and they come out. And those individuals are not all human as we know. They have a different selfhood, they have a different structure. Baha'u'llah insists to call him the God, in a sense that there's no difference between him and God. In a sense that if God, in his very essence, would come to earth, would exactly be doing what Baha'u'llah does, he would exactly be looking like Baha'u'llah in every way. You remember I told you the movie, that Fields of the Dream, where the young player comes from the field into the people, which is not supposed to. As it enters into the field, from 16 to 17, all of a sudden turns out to be 70 to 80 years old, which was played by Burt Lancaster. Same way, when God comes from the other side, field of that dream, into this reality, it turns to Baha'u'llah today, for this time, and somebody else some other time. That is what he is. It is him, all together. So, he delivers this message called I faith. And that's the only way that would help mankind to essentially progress and not to falter. We have to know that there's something instinctive in man, that man wants to progress, anybody in the world. And the catch is that the final point and destination of the progress is God. This is why in Quran says, we are from God and we're returning to him. It's like a cycle. Just go back. As we become more and more spiritual, we more and more assume the reality of God. Then God can talk to us. As Bob says, the communication of God is all the time available at all point of time in this universe. It's just there's no receiver to get the messages. When man becomes more spiritual, less of this matter and this material, then he's stepping towards a higher evolution, that would be his future, and then God is able to use him as a machine to communicate with him and talk to him. Right? So, the religion of God, then, it becomes a manual for manufacturers how to operate oneself. Because there are many, many ways we create, you know. This is why he does two things. First of all, he delivered a message, the road to himself. Then he creates a center of gravity, which is he himself in the form of a man, that mankind instinctively gets attracted to him, and in future to her. People don't know why. It's an instinct. There's no reason to explain why mankind, so many of them, are the follower of Buddha, about 1 billion, follower of Krishna, about 1 billion, follower of Muhammad, about 1 billion, follower of Jesus, about 1 billion. But the follower of Jesus and Muhammad, they're also follower of Moses. Same thing. Big high numbers. Why would mankind follow these particular individuals? There's no serious explanation for it. Just as there's no explanation, why would an Iranian ex-prisoner named Abdul-Baha, old, who can't speak English, to come to the United States of America in 1912, an American Anglo-Saxon white, they just love him so much that churches are inviting him every day to go to attend and speak in churches. Not about Christianity, but about Baha'i faith, about the end of Christianity. Ponder upon this, please. This happened. There is no such an individual has ever been observed, recorded in the history of humanity, that a man from a different religion goes to the place of worship of another religion and tells them that your religion is over, finished. I am the one, the new one. And people say, yes, yes, yes. In a foreign alien country of the origin. This is the point. So God creates his religion as a center of attractions, which everything will revolve around it. That would be the prophet. Now, we shall come into this curriculum, University of God, into this highway of God, cause of God, the religion of God. There are still within this some other shortcuts yet. You can get on the road, take your car, your bike, your walk, or you could use some shortcuts yet to go still faster. You know. That would be the 7 valleys. You could say that, according to the prime directive of Abdul-Baha, that I told you many times during these videos, the spiritual realm and the material realm are a counterpart of each other. In this infinite space that we have, according to the scientists, which I believe too, there are wormholes. And the space, as it is, it folds. Let's say this is the space. Instead of going from this point to this point, the space is folded as such that you do not need to go all the way here, but you go from this point, come this point. Instead of going over the planet Earth to the other side to China, you go right down through the globe. Wormhole. There's wormholes. In the spiritual realm, which is the galaxy and the world of the religion, there is a sun there and there's a sun here. That is a material sun. Here there's a spiritual sun called the prophet of God. There are stars there and there's stars in this space, spiritual space, which is represented by the believers. There's moons there and there's moon here. The moon here is Abdul-Baha, second in charge after the prophet of God, where he gets the light from it. So there are a lot of resemblance, if you look at it, into the religion of God and actual space. One of the resemblance, if we go on, is this wormhole. So you can go through the Baha'i faith, read everything, understand everything, practice everything, and at the end, whenever the time comes, you enter the pathway of God. Okay, safe way, one way. Or you can have a shortcut. Baha'u'llah says sometimes it can get a twinkling of an eye. Have there been people like that? There are many in the Baha'i faith, actually. They just heard about the Baha'i faith in a minute, and the next minute they were getting martyred in the field. That fast. So, these 7 valleys is about that. What it is that if I can sum it up in one sentence, in one phrase, in one statement, what Baha'u'llah wants from us is this. He doesn't care what's in your mind, what's in your brain, what's in your head. He wants to know what's in your heart, not what's in your head. Because ultimately, all your knowledge do not get transferred to the other side, to the plane of existence. Your knowledge about physics and chemistry, all of it are gone. Even the books, writing, kitab aqdas, none of it exists on the other side. None of it. But the consequence and the result of all of this stays there. But like the tree and the fruit and the water and everything is in here. But the fruit comes to the house. An apple is the final result of the tree and undergoing all those cultivations, the land and fertilizer and the roots and the stem and the stalk and the leaves and the sun and all the shadows and everything. Ultimately is the fruit in the house that we eat. It's much like that. Everything that you see here, including the Baha'i faith, it becomes irrelevant when you die. But the fruit is there. What is the fruit? The fruits are, as I mentioned to you before, is in the 6th stage where it starts to come. I have my own 7 valleys. I told you everything starts from instinctive desires, which are 4. That takes us to the 2nd valley of mode, to the 3rd valley of habits, to the 4th valley of ethics. Good or bad ethics results into good and bad deeds. And the deeds results in quality and attributes. Those are the final fruits. Baha'u'llah in a tablet in Mahdi Asmani, the Heavenly Manna, Persian books, Volume 7. He says that the other side, people are recompensed by the attributes and the act. They want how kind you are, it will be measured. He says it will be seen. How much consideration you had, how much caring, how much humility, how much humbleness, how much servitude, how much of a sacrifice, how much of a service, how much of a giving, how much of a generosity, how much of a forgiving you have exerted and produced in your plane of the material. Those are measured. Also, you might at one point have done enough to become kind, but you have done much more than what's required. Then you are seriously wealthy. Bob says if you turn one person, save his soul, one person, to come into the faith of God, your entire sins of the past is forgiven. That means everything you've done. That much of an effect, positive effect that has. One person. So where is then Martha Ruda standing, who brought, I don't know, thousands of people into the faith, she would be so wealthy in the spiritual currency, beyond the imaginations. So, those are the criteria. Now, 7 valleys is a shortcut. It does not ask you if you have any degrees, any PhDs. It doesn't want even if you cannot speak. You could be dumb, blind. But are you seeking the truth? Are you falling in love with the truth? If you do, then you get to understanding. And that understanding eventually results in a critical point, more than 50%. Then you get connected to God. In all the process, knowledge was not a requirement. Understanding is. And understanding does not come with knowledge. Those men of understanding into human life, they transferred their understanding and knowledge for the future generations. Our future generation took those understanding, which was transferred through the book and knowledge, and they produced their own understanding and added to it. So, therefore, this is the final grand scheme of the universe, that God wants to talk to us. He's lonely. You would be too if you were that old. First step, you enter to the Baha'i faith, and then get into the shortcut. Now, is the shortcut the 7 valleys? Baha'u'llah says this is what others have said, and I can explain what they were trying to say. But he says, according to me, he calls himself evanescent. He says, very amazing word he used. I know why. This evanescent one, he says. He says, I'm thinking it's all about the heart. This is about getting into the heart, which means falling in love. And I explained to you, he said there's 4 steps, and I explained it to you last night. There are 4 stages where we use an object and we fall in love. Then we overcome the object. We grow out of him. Then, as a result of that, we get acquainted with actually falling in love with love. And we go, where? And then we always look. This is the 2nd stage, when we get acquainted with love without being in love with anybody. As a result, one day, someday, because our expectation is too high now, we see somebody like Baha'u'llah was convincingly way bigger than us, so beautiful, that we fall in love with the true beloved. The 3rd stage, and then we find out at one point, even we have to grow out of him. He hasn't come here to limit us. He's not a borderline here. He says, I haven't come, so you look at me and stay back. Don't be afraid, come. What you're picturing of me is your destination, he says. Your understanding, Baha'u'llah says, as me is what you can be. It's not me. You cannot possibly understand me. Just like an animal can never understand a human being, we will never be able to understand Baha'u'llah. But we love him so much that we create an understanding of him. And that is where we could be, where we can be. And that's the final stage of heart, he says. So, anybody according to my 7 valleys. Once you start with a good instinct, good mood, resulting in good habits and good ethics and good deeds, which results in good quality, one passes 51%, he is subscribing to the internet. So all the Baha'is, one way or other, are connected to God. Without Baha'i faith, it's impossible. Impossible. It's like you're trying to connect to the space, without using electronic or without using the devices that are available. And you say to the physicist, never mind your electronic and this and that. I'm just going to go in the desert and look at there and yell and talk. Somebody hears me. That's not possible, isn't it? It's not logical. That would be arrogant to say to all mankind and their progress is nothing. It is the same way to say to Baha'u'llah and to 20,000 people who died for him and millions of Baha'is in the world that are trying to establish his cause on the earth, to all of them tell them that I don't need you. Your way is not my way. Well, then you're not a human being, or you think they are not a human being. You see, that's a big judgment. Therefore, we gotta get into the Baha'i faith. That's the station where you can launch your plan. That's the university where you're gonna get the degree. But once you get there, you start to teach. Definitely this time of them is the sign of it is teaching. It is impossible to achieve any of these stages, even the minimal stage of the 7 valleys, without you being involved in teaching. You gotta teach. And once you start to teaching and people come into Baha'i faith, 1, 2, 3, 4, you will know yourself. Things are changing. You're feeling rich now. Your achievement deficit disorder will be repaired. You come out of that feeling, I'm an underachiever. You see you achieved something big. That goes to a point that you start to subscribe to Baha'u'llah. Your computer gets connection. There are 6 marks, Some computers out of the 6 bar, they get 1 bar and 2 bars sometimes, 3 bars. Some get all the full bars. So, some people are 50%. Certain time they received inspirations from God, especially when they teach. If they go further, they get more bar, more connections. To the point that the computer, you could say, none of its program exists anymore. It's all open on the internet, and internet, God, speaks through this computer to people. That's the stage they call it nothingness that he was trying to say. The computer is nothing really, doesn't exist, doesn't have a selfhood, doesn't have a program of its own. It's all God speaking through it. In all of this stage, reaching to God does not exist as such. It's very important. I've written my notes so we know it. We have to know some prime directives because it might create illusions. In the Baha'i faith, there are 3 stages. There are 3, again, prime directive, which is the emblem of the Baha'i faith. There are 3 lines. The one line is the line representing God, the Godhead, the essence of God. That is the stage Baha'u'llah says, I don't know. He says in the Book of Certitude, all the prophets of God, include himself, they acknowledge to their incapacity to comprehend that quintessence of everything. Everything is made out of it, but yet they do not know what that is. It's like, I know I am made out of hydrogens, and I know hydrogen is made out of particles, and I know particles are made of quarks for now. But I don't know what quark is. I don't know what am I made out of. Me, myself, I don't know. That's what Baha'u'llah says. That is God. We will never get there. It's irrelevant. You want to get to God like that? We got to go into entire universe, past the universe. In this side, bright universe. On that side is darkness. You put all your devices. You'll see it's 100% void. By the way, such thing does not exist. I challenge all the physicists in the world. There's no such thing as 100% void. Your devices shows it's void, but actually it's always something. But if you can get to that 100% void, nothing. Go in it. That's God. Because the way He is, we can't even be. As I said before, Mickey Mouse cannot understand Walt Disney. The best Walt Disney do, make a caricature of himself, come into the cartoon and shake the hand. That would be prophet of God, manifestation of God. Create a room, a plain room, absolute dark, pitch black. Enter into the room. Stay in the room if you can for a few hours to get a sense of God. The essence of God is like that. You're in the nothingness. There's nothing to contact. Nothing. So much so that we cannot even say He's creator. If you say He's creator, you put Him in time. He doesn't even do any action, as we know. Baha'u'llah has nothing to prove His existence, His presence, or His absence. You can't say, because there is universe, there is a God. Baha'u'llah says that's not a reason for the presence of God. Or because there are certain things that are not there, therefore the God is not there. So that's not even a fact. So God worked through His willpower. There's things happening. And that willpower is Baha'u'llah. The Baha'u'llah that we know is the manifestation of the will of God, not the essence of God. The will of God. By the way, will of God is the sign that God is alive. If I have no willpower, how could you say I'm alive? Then I am dead without my will. Yet, my will is coming out of me. It's not just me. My will can write these books and speaks to you. These speeches are the creation of me. It is done by my willpower. Neither my willpower or my speeches are me. I am different from all of this. However, without my willpower, you would not know who I am. So, Baha'u'llah is the sign that God is alive. And this Baha'u'llah that we know Him is only as a manifestation. It's a persona of a real actor. Comes on a TV for 50 years, 60 years, a show, and it goes. Next time comes in a different personality. He plays on. He wants us to understand Him. So, then what are we going to do? What is this becoming God, joining God, connecting to? It's all BS, brothers and sisters. All of it. It's pantheism. As I said, it's a total nothingness. You cannot get in there. So we are of the connection. What we mean here is by the will of God, to the will of God, of which we only can connect to what's available to us here in the form of the manifestation of God. Beyond which we don't understand, we cannot understand. I said that we cannot even understand ourselves what will happen after 1 billion years to us. Baha'u'llah, which is will of God, is not 1 trillion or 2 trillion or 1 sextillion or 1 Google or 2 Googleplex. It's a lot more infinite than that. So it's incredible, to think about it. But yet we have a manifestation of it for our understanding in this time. That episode of him is called Baha'u'llah. That's what we're trying to do. Are we trying to join him, being with him? No, we're trying to manifest his teaching. We're trying to manifest his power. We're trying to manifest his kindness. That's what it means by the valley of nothingness. Nothing of us, everything of him. Then we will become the manifestation of God. We become the manifestation of Baha'u'llah. We become like a dog in the shepherd. When the shepherd goes, he keeps the dog to look after the herd. Can we become him? No way. No way. A dog cannot become shepherd. No animal can become human. No vegetable can become animal. No man can assume and become prophet of God. No. I can connect to it. I cannot become the Prime Minister of Canada, but I can have a TV in my house that shows the Prime Minister of Canada. Then I have the Prime Minister in my house, speaks to me. It's the same way. My soul emanates the teaching, the will of Baha'u'llah on the earth. That's what it means. Nothing beyond that. Join God, you're a drop, then you join ocean. It creates a lot of philosophical problem. You join God as if you were not joined. If you could join him, then he must be like you. And if he's like you, then he must be created like you. Then before you join him, then he was missing a point, a drop. A lot of difficulty arises. That kind of a pattern of thinking. It's incorrect. Mathematics, it doesn't work. I guess I'm going to conclude this. These were parts of my thinking about him. So, in the mind of a lot of you people comes that some of you really love me in the future, that whether I have passed these 7 valleys, or I am closer to God, or I am manifestation of Baha'u'llah, or all of this. This is one of the fundamental mistakes if you ever enter into that. Because I swear to Baha'u'llah, I do not know it myself. If I say I know it, I'm lying. It is a fundamental spiritual principle that we cannot judge the degree and the level of the spirituality of our own. We can't. And that is the realm that we are trying to assume to be God, to have his device. Why don't we just all be friends? Never mind up and down. We're all friends. Baha'u'llah says, when you die, when you're so spiritual, he is seeking friendship with you. When we get into these discussions, then there's always a God and there's us. There's your majesty and there's us. I've brought these things before, that one of these modern, new freedom fighters in the West was objecting at me that it is fundamentally, he said, is wrong that we become subservient to any power. That we call him, majesty, God, this and that and that. I told him that where you stand, he's his majesty and this and that. I told him that. Imagine one day the Queen of England, my favorite queen, And she's talking, and people come at the front of the palace and they say, Your Majesty the Queen, this, Your Majesty this, and Your Majesty that. All of a sudden on the back, a little boy, maybe wearing diaper, passes by and says, Grandma, Grandma. And we look at ourselves. She's a grandma on the back, on the front. She's Majesty. So if you're staying outside of the Baha'i faith, outside of God, outside of Baha'u'llah, you see His Majesty and this and that. If you get inside, He's your Father. God is me. I am Him. I never want anybody to bring my Father down. And my Father never wants anybody to bring me down. There's too much love in there that nobody cares who's bigger, who's lower, who's worse. In the family, love rules. Therefore, there's no ups and downs. Who cares who's higher, who's lower? I never will brag that I'm bigger than my brothers. I might be even sorry that why my brother is not as big as me. If anything, I never bring it up to my father to say, oh God, oh Father, so many people are bad. He says, well then go fix them. Why are you telling me? I don't want to hear that. So stay away from this pattern of thinking, which has been the classical way of the religious people of the past. I personally think there's no difference between us and God, between us and Baha'u'llah even, between us and anything. At the level of the love, these questions are all irrelevant. If Baha'u'llah is so big, then I must be bigger, because such a big one like him has come to teach me. Whenever you see yourself so high than other people, then you have to feel responsibility to do something about it. So they know what you know. Bragging and brushing it over the people, you're outside of the spirituality, you're into imagination, you're mixing things up. Because these things cannot be measured. Measurements, all of this is indicative of the materials. On the other side, there's no such things. The people in the heaven are so sorry for those who couldn't make it. Even there, they try everything they can to get it. Okay? Like my hand is so happy that the other hand is hand crippled. How could this hand be happy? Because now he has to do all the work for the other hand that's handicapped. My brain certainly is very unhappy. Every man who's down on the earth, it's our problem. So, don't ask these questions from me now or forever. I do not want to know even. If Baha'u'llah one day asked me that, Abbas, do you want to know where you are at? And said, no, I'm not interested. I know I'm with everyone and everyone is with you. We're all one. Those who are not is because of my laziness. I have to do something sad about it. I couldn't. I'm so sorry. That others are doing bad things. They're hurting themselves, hurting other people. It's all indicative of my powerlessness. I'm not being good enough. Or else they would have changed to better. That's all I can think of it. Okay. I don't want to turn it into the pulpit and start this kind of methodology. I do not do. So that was a part because it comes in the future that people trying to grade each other again. Please just stay away from that. That is the domain of God. And it's a very unfortunate domain. I don't want to be there. Let him be doing that. I don't want to assume that responsibility, even for myself. I hope every one of us be happy and every one of us reaches to the same place. And we pray, as Baha'u'llah says, for remission of the sins of others. or get up and see if we can do something about it, Okay. May Baha'u'llah be with you. I was going to do 2 programs in Persian, especially for a lady that has affected me. I was going to do some poetry of Tahireh. I don't know if I can do it or not. I was also going to do a few videos on revelation of the Bab, because there's a lot of stuff that's elusive and complicated there that I would respond to it, because enemies, Muslims, I don't know, those who hate themselves, they're going to bring these things up in future and confusing you guys. I was going to do that. I don't know if I can do it. I've received a message that I have to speak about China and Chinese, a huge force, and a lot of spiritual grades in them, lots of spiritual grades and lessons that you have to learn from them. These are in agendas, but I'm not promising anything. If I felt good and okay, I will do it. If I couldn't, I feel myself saturated. I've done what I have to do. And especially there's no intrigues, no desires from you people in wanting to know more. You seem all being bamboozled, the phrase of Mr. Obama, by me and by these videos and between me and the universal laws of justice and all of this. To you, I have to answer that. Universal laws of justice, local spiritual assembly, and national spiritual assembly are the machinery of God. They're divine in origin. The people governing on them have been elected and selected by us. They may not necessarily do the right job. They are not promised to do the right job. Okay? So, if one of them, they come and say that today to me that I'm not a Baha'i, that's okay. Maybe 50 years, the Universal Laws of Justice says we change our decisions and we say that he is a Baha'i, and another time we said that he was the elder of God. So, because in the Baha'i faith it is allowed for Universal Laws of Justice to change his position, their position, progressively. And that is the prerogative that is being given by Baha'u'llah to them. My main objective was, as an elder of God, with the responsibility of guardianship, would be the interpretations of the part that has been like an stereogram, not being seen by you, to tell you the opportunities in the writing that allows us to create, put it together, shall I say, assemble the universal laws of guardianship that is missing in the Baha'i faith, but all the accounts. That's it. And those are not my text, they're the text of Shawi Effendi. I've been given the responsibility to bring it up to you. Because of that, I'm not actually better than you. I must have done a lot of bad things probably. That Baha'u'llah has given me this responsibility, the tough one, that I could possibly do it, and as a result, I might be forgiven. You know, I take it that way. I take this a punishment by him on me, a disciplinary act. Baha'u'llah be with you.